Do you know that right now, as you are reading these words, somewhere in California, the ground is dry enough to catch fire from a single spark? Have you ever wondered why the fires in California keep getting bigger, more dangerous, and harder to stop, year after year, decade after decade? California was once called the Golden State, a land of sunshine, beauty, and life. But today, that golden color has taken on a different meaning. It is the color of smoke-filled skies, of burned forests, of ash-covered homes, and of families running for their lives with nothing but the clothes on their backs. And the frightening truth is, this is not the worst it will get. So today, we are going to understand this story in detail. Let us go back. Not too far, just a few decades. In the 1970s and 1980s, California had wildfires. That is nothing new. Fire has always been part of nature. It clears old trees, makes room for new plants, and keeps forests healthy. The indigenous people of California, the Native Americans who lived on this land for thousands of years, they understood fire. They used it carefully. They burned small areas on purpose to prevent bigger fires later. It was a system that worked. But then, everything changed. As more people moved into California, cities and neighborhoods began spreading into areas that were once wild forests. This is called the wildland-urban interface, the place where human homes meet wild nature. People built houses deep inside forests, next to dry hills, near rivers that were slowly disappearing. And at the same time, fire management changed too. The government started putting out almost every fire as quickly as possible. It seemed like the smart thing to do. But without small, controlled fires burning regularly, dead wood, dry leaves, and old plants kept piling up on the forest floor, year after year, like fuel waiting for a match. And then came climate change. The temperatures in California started rising, not overnight, slowly, quietly, but steadily. Each decade warmer than the last. Rain patterns shifted, snow in the Sierra Nevada mountains, which melts slowly through spring and feeds California's rivers and soil with water, started arriving later and melting earlier. The soil began drying out faster. Summers grew longer and hotter. And then came the droughts. A drought means there is not enough rain or water for a long period of time. California entered one of the worst droughts in its recorded history, lasting from 2012 to 2017. During those 5 years, millions of trees died. Not from fire, from thirst. The U.S. Forest Service estimated that over 129 million trees died across California during this period. 129 million. Standing dead in the forest, bone dry, ready to burn. This is what scientists call a tinderbox, a place so dry and full of fuel that fire can explode through it at unimaginable speed. And then the fires came. In November 2018, a fire started near the town of Paradise in Butte County. It started from a faulty electrical transmission line owned by Pacific Gas and Electric. One single line, one single spark. Within hours, the town of Paradise was gone. The Camp Fire, as it was called, became the deadliest and most destructive wildfire in California's recorded history. 85 people died. Over 18,000 buildings were destroyed. An entire town, home to nearly 27,000 people, was wiped off the map in less than a day. Survivors described driving through walls of fire on both sides of the road, not knowing if they would make it out alive. Children were separated from parents, elderly people trapped in care homes, animals running in every direction with nowhere to go. This was not just a fire, this was a warning. But the warnings did not stop there. In 2020, California experienced its worst wildfire season ever recorded at that time. Over 4.2 million acres burned in a single year. To put that in perspective, that is larger than the entire state of Connecticut. The sky above San Francisco turned a deep, haunting orange in the middle of the day, so thick with smoke that it looked like something from a science fiction movie. People posted pictures around the world. Everyone asked, "What is happening to California?" The answer, though no one wanted to hear it, was already known. Climate change was making everything worse. The heat, the dryness, the wind, the dead trees, the longer summers, all of it combining into a perfect storm of fire. And scientists were already saying, loudly and clearly, this is not the end. This is the beginning. The fires were getting smarter, faster, and bigger. And by 2030, they could become something we are truly not ready for. The fires did not just burn trees. They changed the air, the water, the land, and the lives of millions of people. And what is happening now, in 2025 and 2026, is proof that California's wildfire crisis has moved beyond emergency. It has become the new normal. But what does new normal really mean for the people living through it? Let us find out. In January 2025, Los Angeles, one of the most famous cities in the entire world, burned. The Palisades Fire and the Eaton Fire broke out almost at the same time, pushed by powerful Santa Ana winds that were blowing at over 100 miles per hour in some areas. These are hot, dry winds that come from the inland deserts and push toward the coast, and they are one of California's oldest natural features. But climate change has made them more extreme, more unpredictable, and far more dangerous. Within days, entire neighborhoods in Pacific Palisades, a wealthy coastal community, were reduced to nothing but chimneys and ash. Altadena, a historic neighborhood full of old trees and family homes, was devastated. Over 37,000 acres burned in the Los Angeles area alone. More than 12,000 structures were destroyed. Tens of thousands of people were forced to evacuate. Dozens lost their lives. The images were almost impossible to believe. Swimming pools filled with ash. Streets lined with burned car skeletons. Children's toys melted into the sidewalk. Families standing in front of where their homes used to be, holding nothing. And here is the part that most people do not talk about: the smoke. When a wildfire burns, it does not just burn wood, it burns everything. Homes, cars, furniture, plastics, chemicals, insulation, paint. All of that toxic material goes up into the air as smoke and tiny particles called PM 2.5. Particles so small they go straight through your nose, past your throat, deep into your lungs. You cannot see them. You cannot smell them individually, but they are there, and they are dangerous. Studies have shown that breathing wildfire smoke is like smoking multiple cigarettes a day. Children, elderly people, pregnant women, and anyone with asthma or heart conditions are most at risk. But the truth is, no one is safe when the air turns gray. During the 2025 Los Angeles fires, air quality across Southern California reached levels described as hazardous, the worst category on the air quality scale. Schools closed. People were told to stay indoors. Hospitals reported surges in patients with breathing problems. And yet, many people had nowhere else to go. Many had already lost their homes. This is the hidden cost of wildfires that rarely makes the headlines. Now let us talk about water, because fire and water are more connected than most people realize. California depends heavily on its forests and soil to capture rainwater and slowly release it into rivers, lakes, and underground water supplies. When forests burn, that system breaks down completely. The burned soil becomes hard, almost like concrete. It cannot absorb water anymore. So when rain finally comes after a wildfire, instead of soaking into the earth and feeding rivers slowly, it rushes across the surface, picking up ash, toxic chemicals, and debris, and flooding into communities below. This is called a post-fire debris flow, and it is almost as dangerous as the fire itself. In January 2018, just weeks after the Thomas Fire burned through Ventura and Santa Barbara counties, heavy rain triggered a massive debris flow in the town of Montecito. A wall of mud, rocks, and ash, some boulders the size of cars, came crashing through the town in the middle of the night while people were sleeping. 23 people were killed. Hundreds of homes were destroyed. People who had survived the fire did not survive the mud. Fire, then flood, then toxic air, then loss, then silence. This is the cycle that California communities are now living with, over and over again. And the economy is bleeding too. Insurance companies across California have started doing something extraordinary. They are leaving. Major insurance providers have stopped offering home insurance in large parts of California because the wildfire risk has simply become too high to make business sense. Farmers Insurance, State Farm, Allstate, one by one they have pulled back or reduced coverage in the state. This means that hundreds of thousands of California homeowners cannot get insurance for their homes. And a home without insurance in a fire zone is not just a risk, it is a potential financial death sentence. One fire, one night, everything gone, and no safety net. Property values in high-risk fire zones are beginning to drop. People are moving away from communities their families have lived in for generations. Towns are slowly emptying. And the local governments, already stretched thin fighting fires, are losing the tax money they need to rebuild and protect their communities. The damage is not just physical. It is economic, social, and deeply human. But perhaps the most alarming truth of all is this. What we have seen so far may only be the beginning. Scientists at UCLA, Stanford, and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration have been running climate models, computer simulations that look at how California's climate will change as global temperatures continue rising. And what those models show for the years between now and 2030 is deeply sobering. Average temperatures in California are projected to rise by at least 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit above pre-industrial levels within this decade. Rainfall in Southern California is expected to become more unpredictable, with longer dry periods followed by sudden heavy rains. The wildfire season, which used to run from June to October, is now effectively a year-round threat. Wind patterns are shifting, vegetation is changing, the Santa Ana winds are becoming more intense, and the forests, already stressed and full of dead, dry trees, are sitting on the edge. One spark, one power line, one dry lightning strike. That is all it takes. The land remembers. The question is, will we listen to what it is telling us before 2030 arrives? There is a question that scientists, firefighters, city planners, and ordinary families across California are all quietly asking themselves. Not out loud, not in press conferences or news reports, but in the still moments, when the wind picks up, when the sky turns yellow, when the air smells like smoke and no one can find the fire yet. The question is simple, and it is terrifying. How much worse can this get? The answer, based on everything we now know, is much worse. But it does not have to be. And that is the most important thing we will talk about today. Let us paint a picture of California in 2030. Not a fantasy, not an exaggeration, but a realistic projection based on the science we already have. By 2030, global average temperatures are expected to cross the 1.5 degrees Celsius warming threshold above pre-industrial levels, a number that climate scientists have long described as a critical tipping point. For California, that global number translates into something very local and very real. The fire season will no longer be a season. It will simply be life. Researchers at the University of California have projected that the area burned by wildfires in California each year could increase by 50% or more by 2030, compared to the already devastating figures of recent years. That means if 2020 burned 4.2 million acres, one of the worst years ever recorded at the time, we could be looking at fires consuming 6 million or more acres in a single year before this decade is over. 6 million acres every year. Think about what that means for air, for water, for homes, for children growing up breathing smoke every summer, and now every winter too. Think about what it means for the firefighters, already exhausted, already underfunded, already outmatched by fires that move faster than any human being can run. And there is something else that rarely gets discussed, the feedback loop. A feedback loop is when one bad thing causes another bad thing, which then makes the first bad thing even worse, and the cycle keeps going, getting stronger each time. Here is how it works with California wildfires. The planet warms. California gets hotter and drier. More trees die. More fires burn. Those fires release enormous amounts of carbon dioxide and methane, greenhouse gases, into the atmosphere. Those greenhouse gases trap more heat on Earth. The planet warms even more. California gets even hotter and drier. Even more trees die. even bigger fires burn. Around and around it goes. California's forests were once called carbon sinks, meaning they absorbed more carbon from the atmosphere than they released. They were helping to slow climate change. But after years of massive wildfires, some scientists believe California's forests may now be releasing more carbon than they absorb. They have gone from being part of the solution to being part of the problem. Not because of anything the trees did wrong, but because we pushed the system too far. This is what a tipping point looks like in real life. Not a dramatic explosion, just a quiet, terrible shift, where the helpers become the harmed, and the solutions start turning into problems. The human cost by 2030, if current trends continue, is almost too large to fully picture. Millions of Californians already live in what are classified as high or very high fire hazard severity zones. By 2030, those zones are expected to expand significantly, meaning more homes, more schools, more hospitals, more communities sitting directly in the path of potential fire. Insurance will become nearly impossible to get in large parts of the state. Some communities, particularly poorer ones without the money to rebuild or relocate, will face a choice no family should ever have to make. Stay in a place that may burn, or leave behind everything you have ever known. We already have a name for people forced to leave their homes because of environmental disaster. They are called climate refugees. And California, one of the richest places on Earth, is already beginning to produce them. Children in fire-affected communities are showing higher rates of anxiety, post-traumatic stress, and depression. Teachers report students who cannot sleep because they are afraid their house will burn while they are dreaming. Parents who keep go bags packed by the front door every single night, just in case. This is not a future warning. This is already happening, right now, in American neighborhoods, in the sixth largest economy in the world. But here is where we must stop and breathe and remember something important. The story is not over. Because while the science shows us how bad things could get, it also shows us exactly what we need to do to pull back from the edge. And people are already doing it, imperfectly, slowly, but they are doing it. So what are the solutions? What can actually change the path we are on? First, we must manage our forests differently. California has already begun investing in what is called prescribed burning, intentionally setting small, controlled fires in forests during safe conditions to clear out the dead wood and dry fuel that makes big fires so catastrophic. Indigenous tribes across California are being invited back into this conversation because their ancestors practiced this land management for thousands of years, and it worked. More funding, more trained crews, and more community support for prescribed burns could dramatically reduce the fuel available for future megafires. Second, we must rethink where and how we build. New building codes in California are requiring homes in fire-prone areas to use fire-resistant materials, metal roofs, ember-resistant vents, non-flammable landscaping. Communities are being redesigned with better evacuation routes, and harder conversations are beginning about whether some areas should be rebuilt at all after they burn, or whether it is time to help people relocate to safer ground before the next fire arrives. Third, we must fix the power infrastructure. A shocking number of California's worst wildfires have been started by electrical equipment. Power lines snapping in the wind, transformers sparking in dry grass. Pacific Gas and Electric alone has been responsible for starting some of the most destructive fires in state history. Burying power lines underground in the highest risk areas, upgrading old equipment, and using modern technology to automatically shut off power during dangerous wind events. These are not futuristic ideas. They are things California is already doing, but needs to do much faster and at much larger scale. Fourth, we must act on climate change itself. Every fraction of a degree of warming we prevent matters. Transitioning from fossil fuels to clean energy, solar, wind, electric vehicles, reduces the greenhouse gases that are making California's climate more extreme every year. This is a global problem that requires global action. But individuals, communities, cities, and states all have a role to play. Every solar panel installed, every gas-powered car replaced with an electric one, every tree planted and protected. It all adds up. Fifth, and perhaps most importantly, we must listen to the science and to each other. The scientists have been telling us this was coming for decades. The indigenous communities have been telling us this was coming for even longer. The firefighters on the front lines have been telling us they are losing ground. The families who have lost their homes have been telling us that this is not acceptable. We have all the warnings we need. What we need now is the will to act, together, urgently, and without waiting for the next disaster to remind us. California is not lost. The earth is not lost. But the window of time in which our choices can still make a real difference, is closing. Not in 100 years, not in 50. By 2030, the path we are walking will have taken us somewhere. The only question is, which path will we choose? The fires are telling us something. The smoke is telling us something. The empty lots where homes used to stand, the children with go bags by their doors, the forests full of dead trees, they are all telling us the same thing, in the only language the earth knows how to speak. Are we ready to listen? And now, we want to hear from you. What changes are you willing to make in your life to help protect our planet from the growing threat of wildfires and climate change? Tell us in the comments below, because the conversation does not end here. It starts here.